Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon on Lookup Tables. We're going to I've got about 5 examples that we're going to go through. We're going to look at a lookup table, a Vlookup, and a HLookup. So to start with just our lookup table, I'm going to put together a simple grade book that will specify the grade for the student. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with putting in about 5 grades here. So we'll put in, let's do quiz instead. So I'm just going to build this one from scratch so you can see how it's done. My other examples I already have prepared. The templates are already in place. So we'll go ahead and put in our student name and just merge and center that. First name and our last name. Make those column widths just a little bit bigger. And then we'll come over to H, and we want Excel to calculate the average. And then we are going to build a lookup table to determine the grade. So I'll just go ahead and put in about 5 names here. But if at any time you have questions, I do have the chat box open and I'm monitoring that. So feel free to post any questions in there that you may have. Okay, so I have my 5 students here. Each one of our quizzes is going to be worth 100 points. And for sake of the demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and randomly put in numbers between 0 and 100 from C4 down to G9. Okay, as soon as I get these in, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to come up here and use a built-in function in Excel. So I'm just going to come up and use the average built-in function. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. We will select our data range, which for our first student is from C5 to H5. I'm going to go ahead and hit the what happened? Okay, there we go. Now it's back. Let's go ahead and do that again. There we go. That looks a little bit better. So we have our average. I'm just going to go ahead and use my fill handle to fill that down. And we have our grade book set up. So I'm going to come down here to sheet 1. I'm just going to rename this grade book. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another worksheet in. And this is going to be our grading scale. So in our grading scale, go ahead and zoom that in a little bit for you so it's easier to see. So in our grading scale, we're going to go between 0 and 100%, and we will insert the grade that accompanies that percentage. So I'm just going to go from 0 to 60, and then a 63 and a 67. We'll put in a 70 for a C minus, 73, a 77, an 80. We need our 83 and 87, 90 and 93. Okay, so between 0 and 60, the grade assigned will be a failing grade. Between 60 and 62 will be a D minus. And then 63 to 66, a D. You can see the pattern here. We'll just go D plus, C minus, C. So I'm just setting up my lookup table so that Excel can come in and compare the students' percentages with the table that we're setting up, and it will automatically insert the grade for that student. A minus and an A. Okay, so we have worksheet 1, which is our grade book. Okay, so we have everything set up and ready to go. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to I5. And in I5, I'm just going to type in equal and grab my lookup built-in option. And what it does is says, okay, what's the lookup value? That's the first thing that we need to determine. And the lookup value is going to be whatever is in column H. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on H5 for our first student. And then I'll put a comma in, and then we need to locate the lookup vector, which is our grading scale that we just typed in. So I'll go ahead and click on grading scale. Note that whatever you call this worksheet, it will automatically input into the lookup. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select from A2 down to B13. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the F4 key, which is my function key, to make that an absolute reference. Because when we fill this lookup table down, we don't want it moving outside of columns A and B and or rows 1 through 13. Okay, so now that I have that in, I'm going to go ahead and just hit the enter key, and you can see that it automatically assigned my student Luann a C minus, which is correct. Her average is 72.8%. If we come back over here, you can see that that lands in between a 70 and a 72, so it assigned that grade correctly. We'll go ahead, let me go ahead and do that one more time, and then we'll use the fill handle. So I'm going to start with the equal sign, and then I'm going to select the built-in function lookup. Just go ahead and double click on that. The first thing I want to do is select the lookup value, which is in H6. I'm going to go ahead and put a comma in there. Then I'm going to go over to my grading scale where I put in my table. Going to select from A2 down to B13. Make sure that you don't put the label grading scale in there. You just want your values in the table. We'll go ahead and make that an absolute reference and hit the enter key. And likewise, it assigned Pat a C plus. So I'll go ahead and use my fill handle just to fill the rest of those in. So let's go in and make some changes to a couple of our students just to ensure that it is working correctly. And by putting in 100 on some of these, you can see how Jill's grade is going up. So it looks like we have successfully put together a lookup table. So that is the first example that I wanted to share with you. The second example is for a fundraiser. So what I have here are a list of people that have donated to my fundraiser, and I'm going to go ahead and have my fundraiser. So I've got donations. I've got the people that have volunteered to donate, and then we're going to have a physical fundraiser, and we're going to see who attended, and if they attended, did they pay, or do we need to collect from them? So I'm going to come back over to donations for just a second. There's a couple of ways that we can build this lookup table. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to create a name for this table. So I'm going to go ahead and select my data, and then I'm going to come up here to the name box, and I'm going to rename this donations. Okay, so now when I click inside of that, or when I select, let's see, where'd you go? Okay, there we go. So when I come to my name box and click in donations, it selects the cells that I had highlighted when I went in and gave that name. Now, you might have noted that I left off some rows and some data down here. So if I want to start over with that, what I'll want to do is to just delete this particular table. So I'm going to come over to formulas, and I'm going to go to name manager, and I'm just going to tell it that I want to delete this reference. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. This time I'm going to select all of my data, and I can do that in one of two ways. I can manually highlight it, or I can hold down the control key and hit the star, and it will automatically select the data on this worksheet. From there, since I have all of this selected, I'm going to go back up to my name box, and we're going to just type in donations, hit the enter key, and we have that complete. So let's go ahead and skip over here to attendance. And what we're going to do is just go to B2. And in B2, I'm going to build my Vlookup. So I'm going to type in equal and Vlookup. Much like the lookup table, what we're going to do first is we are going to tell Excel what the lookup value is. So in this case, it's going to be A2, the names of the folks that attended the fundraiser. So I'm going to go ahead and click in A2 and put a comma in there. Now, because we named our table, all I need to do is to start typing in donations. It will populate that for me, and I can go ahead and just double click on donations, and it automatically inserted my table. Now in that table, we want it to look at donations, and if you recall, the donations table had two rows. In the first row, it had all of their names. In the second row, it had their donations. So we need to tell Excel that we want it to look at column 2. So column 2, and then we're going to put in another comma, And we're going to determine whether we want it to be an exact match or an approximate match. In this case, we want it to be an exact match. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click on false or exact match. And we'll go ahead and close our parentheses and hit the enter key. And we can see that Albert attended the fundraiser. And prior to the fundraiser, he had given a donation or said that he would donate $88. So that is correct. Let's come back over to attendance. Let's go through that one more time. I'm going to type in equal and then just Vlookup. Note that it populates that, so I can just go ahead and double click on the Vlookup. I'm going to go ahead and click in A3 because that's where we want Excel to look. And then I'm going to put a comma in. Again, when you start to type in donations, it will populate that. So I can just go ahead and double click on it. And then we're going to put in a comma. Again, we want it to look at the second column. So I'm going to put in a 2 and another comma, and we want it to be an exact match. Close my parentheses, hit the enter key, and tells us that John donated $67. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the fill down, and you can see that quite a few of these people had promised donations prior to the event. However, we've got some folks in here, Russ and Brian and Shelly and Tizzy, that we have not received their donations yet. Now, what it does is it says that that's not available. We want that to look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to do one other thing to my Vlookup formula. I'm going to come back up and I'm going to make some adjustments to it. So I'm going to click right in between the equal sign and the V, and I'm just going to put in something called an if error. And that if error means that these people were not in my donation list. So I'm just going to type in if error, and then I'm going to come to the end of my formula, and I'm going to type in a comma, and in quotes, I'm just going to say collect. So rather than having it put the not available error in there, I'm telling it to go ahead and just put the word collect in there to make it look just a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key, and then we'll go ahead and fill this down again. And you can see that folks that did attend the event but did not leave their donation, that we need to contact them to collect their donation. Okay, so that's a lookup table and a Vlookup table. Let's see which one we have next. So let's go ahead and look at an HLookup table. In the HLookup table, what I've done is I've put together just a little spreadsheet that has some orders on it. It has our subtotals. The next thing I want to do is determine the region and the shipping. So those are our orders. On my second worksheet that I developed over here, I have something called shipping rate. And that gives me our zones and all of our rates. So I'm going to come back over here to orders, and you know what, let's just make this consistent. Just notice that we want that to say regions. That's on our order, it says regions. It doesn't impact our HLookup, just to make the spreadsheet a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to come down here to C2, and rather than type in north, south, east, or west, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to data, and then we're going to use something called data validation. And I'm going to go ahead and click on data validation, and it will populate this window. What I want to do next is go ahead and click on the down arrow and select list. And then we need to select our source. So I'm going to click inside of source. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and come down here and click on shipping rates. And I'm going to select the 4 regions that I put in. And we'll go ahead and select those. You can see that my source says equal shipping rates. It picked that up from the name of my worksheet. And then B2 through E2 with the absolute reference in it. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to select from a drop-down menu. Okay, so let's just do that one more time. I'm going to come down to C3. Again, we're on the data ribbon. I'm going to come over here to data validation. I'm going to go ahead and select that first option. And then I'm going to select list. We'll select our source. So I'm going to click inside of source, go over here to shipping rate, and we'll select the 4 regions. Go ahead and click on OK. And I only did that for one cell. I could have selected all of the cells that will be impacted. The other thing that I can do is I can use my fill handle, and it will apply that data validation to each one of them. So now I can come in and I can select what region that we are shipping to, because that's going to determine the charge for shipping. So we'll just go through here and select different regions for each one of these. Okay, so that is data validation. So now let's come over here to shipping, and we will create our H-lookup. And as you have probably determined, the Vlookup is for vertical, the H-lookup is for horizontal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in equal, and then we'll start to type in H-lookup. Now you can go ahead and type this in yourself. You don't necessarily have to double click on the option that Excel is sharing with you. That's just a little bit of a shortcut. So I'm going to go ahead and type in H-lookup and open my parentheses. Again, what I want it to do is I want it to refer to what is in column C. So I'm going to go ahead and click on C2 and then put in a comma. And this time we're going to go ahead and click on shipping rates. I certainly could have created a name box for these 4 percentages. You can do it whichever way you prefer. So far with our formula, we have equal H-lookup, open parentheses, C2, which is what we want Excel to refer to. And then I clicked on shipping rates. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and select from B3 over to E3. I'm going to go ahead and hit the F4 to put in my absolute reference. We'll go ahead and close our parentheses and hit the Enter key. Let's see, it looks like I've got a little bit of an error statement here. So let's go in and see what happened. All right. So one of the reasons that I typed in the H-lookup is to just kind of show you that if you don't select it from below, it doesn't give you a little bit of a guide. Okay, so let's go ahead and let it show the guide. So equal HLOOKUP, open the parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and click on my lookup value first. Then I'm going to go to my table array. So we'll come over here to shipping, and I'm going to go ahead and select this data from A2 to E3. We'll put an absolute reference on that. Now what I need to do, the reason that I got that error statement is because I didn't tell Excel or the formula that within this table array, what am I supposed to be looking at? And we want it to look at row 2 within that array. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a 2, put in my comma, and we want this to be false. So we'll go ahead and select that, close my parentheses, and what do I have going on here? Let's see. Okay, let's try this one more time. So we're going to shipping, type in HLOOKUP, and we want it to refer to column C. So I'll go ahead and click on that, put in a comma. We'll come over here to shipping rates. And I think the reason that we got that was because I selected regions and rates. So we'll go ahead and select from B2 down to E3. We'll make that an absolute reference. We want it to refer to row 2. And you can have it either be a true or false match, whichever one you want, or you can leave that out. Go ahead and make that a false match. We'll close our parentheses, hit the enter key, and there we go. That's working a lot better. So the West region hopefully has an 8% in there, and it does. Let's go ahead and go back to orders. I'm going to go ahead and go through that one more time. So I'm going to type in equal and HLOOKUP. We'll go ahead and select. We want it to refer to column C. Then I'm going to put a comma in. We'll go back over to shipping rate, select just our data table. I'm going to make that an absolute reference so that it is only looking at cells B2 through E3. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put in a comma, tell it to refer to row 2, and another comma, and we want it to be an exact match. I'll go ahead and close my parentheses, hit the enter key, and let's make sure that the East is 7%. It is, so we're in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that down. It will fill in all of my shipping percentages. So if I come over here to shipping rate, let's say that shipping went up in the South. So that's going to be 18%. So when I click on 18, or type in 18, hit the enter key, when I come back over to orders, it automatically increased that percentage. So that's the value of the lookup table. You know, if you come in and make a change, it will automatically update it on your shipping. So in order to create my total, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the equal sign. We want our subtotal of the order, and then we're going to add in, and we're going to put this in parentheses, B2 times our percentage. We'll close our parentheses, and you can see what's going to happen is it's going to take our subtotal and then multiply our subtotal times the shipping percentage to give us a total overall. So there we have a 132. Do that one more time. I'm just going to type in equal, take our subtotal, and we want to add our subtotal and our shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and put in parentheses our subtotal times the shipping percentage. Go ahead and close my parentheses and hit the enter key. Okay, you can go ahead and fill that down. And you can see that I've got some pound marks in here. That's just telling me that we need a little bit more room to show that total. So we'll increase that column width just a tad bit. So you'll note that now when I come over and change my shipping rates, let's say that shipping to the east went down by 5%. So we'll make that a 3%. So when I come back over, not only does it impact the shipping percentage, but it also adjusts our totals. So I can come back over here to shipping rate. Let's say that the north went down as well. We'll just change that to a 6%. And when we come back over, our orders for the north also decreased. If I go back to my region and I change the region from north to another region, it's automatically going to update. So now you can see the impact that the spreadsheet is having as we're building it, because we have our regions, we have our shipping percentage, and our totals. So by changing that region, it also impacts our shipping and our total. So you can kind of do a what if by looking at that. So that's an H lookup. I have one more example here that I want to share with you, and that is an invoice template. So what I've done is I went ahead and built this invoice template. It has my invoice on one worksheet and product details on another. So in my product details, I have 3 columns this time. I have my item name, I have my code, and I have my price per unit. So if I come back over to invoice, let me go ahead and let's delete some of that. We'll do a little bit of a review here. So I'm just going to delete those, and then we'll go ahead and reinsert some rows. So we can do a little bit of a review here. We go in, we don't want any fill there. Okay. So for my item description, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to merge these cells. And then I'll just fill that down. Okay, so for our item description, I'm going to go ahead and go back to data and to data validation, because what we want to do is be able to have a drop-down menu for all of our items. So I'm going to go ahead and select list again. We'll go ahead and go to our source. So I'm going to click inside of there, come back over to my product details, and we will select all of the items that we're selling with our little tech company that we have started. So once I've selected those, it says A2 through A10, which is correct. It automatically inserts the absolute reference. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. At this point, I can go ahead and fill that down. And now if I have an order, I can go ahead and select those items. Let's see, why isn't that showing up? There we go. My fonts must have been the same as my background. So we'll just put a couple different items in here to play around with our first order. Oops, we already have those. Go to keyboard. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to build a VLOOKUP that is going to, when I select flash drive 32 megabytes, I also want it to insert the item code. So we're going to build a VLOOKUP to insert the item code, and then we're going to create a VLOOKUP that will also automatically insert the unit price. Okay, so let's start with the VLOOKUP for our item code. I'm going to go ahead and select A19. We'll type in the equal sign. This must be there we go. Equal, and then our VLOOKUP. Okay, so what we want it to do in our VLOOKUP first is to refer to our item description. So I'll go ahead and click on B19, and then I'm going to put a comma in. We're going to come over here to product details. And in my product details, I am going to select from A2 down to C10. So that is all of the data that's involved with my items that I sell, the codes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include the price per unit. So I have that in there. I'm going to hit F4 to insert my absolute reference. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a comma, and I need to tell it within this table which column do I want it to look for or refer to for the item code. So in this case, it's going to be the second row. So I'll go ahead and type in a 2 and another comma. And again, this is going to be false because we want an exact match. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter key. And you can see that the item code is 571. Let's just come over here to product details, make sure that the flash drive 32 gigabytes is indeed 571. So we are good there. We'll come down, we'll do that one more time. So I'm going to type in equal and my VLOOKUP. I'll go ahead and double click on that. And we want it to refer to whatever is in column B. So I'll select B20, and then I'm going to put in a comma. I'm going to move over to my product details. Going to select the items in that table, make that an absolute reference, put in a comma. We want it to look at the second row, and then another comma. And we want it to be an exact match. And when I hit my Enter key, you can see that we're moving along quite well because flash drive 6 gigabytes is indeed 568. So I can just go ahead and fill that down. Now, when I fill that down in my invoice, you can see that I went below the items that were purchased on this one invoice. To avoid the NA going in there, we'll go ahead and use the if error again. So I'm going to go ahead and select if error, and then at the end of my formula, I'm just going to put in a comma and open parentheses, close parentheses. So I'm not going to put anything in there. If you recall from my last example, when we were doing the VLOOKUP, I put collect in there. I just want this to be a blank cell so that my invoice is nice and clean. I'll go ahead and hit the enter key. Now what I need to do is fill that down so that it impacts. Where did I put that in? All right. Comma, open parentheses, close my parentheses again. Now let's fill it down. There we go. I may not have closed my parentheses on that, so it didn't fill it down. So that's a way to, using that if error, just kind of cleans up your spreadsheet, or in this case, it cleans up my invoice a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here to unit price, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing, but this time I need it to look at row 3 of that table. So I'm going to type in equal. Hang on. All of these, for some reason, there we go. So I'm going to type in equal and Vlookup. Again, we want it to refer to column B, so I'm going to go ahead and click on B19, put in my comma. I'm going to go over to product details, select the same data and make that an absolute reference. Then I'm going to put in a comma, but this time I want it to refer to column 3. Now, a question that I get quite frequently is, why can't I just put a C in there? Because the items are in column C. And what you need to do is refer to the rows of the table. So it doesn't matter if my table is over here in columns K through P, I would still put in the row that's within this table. So in this case, it is row 3, and then another comma, and we want it to be an exact match. I'll go ahead and close my parentheses, hit the enter key. It says that the price for our flash drives, 32 gigabytes, is $18.98. That is correct, so we're good there. Let's just go ahead and do that one more time. So I'm going to go equal Vlookup. Vlookup, I want it to refer to column B again, so I'm going to click on B20 in this case, put in a comma, and I'm going to come back over to product details. I'm going to select the data that I am working with. I'm going to go ahead and hit my F4 key to make that an absolute reference. And then I'm going to come over, I'm going to tell my Vlookup that I want it to refer to column 3 and that I want it to be an exact match. Go ahead and close my parentheses, hit the enter key, and now I can just go ahead and fill that down, and it automatically puts all of the prices in. Let's just pop over here to product details again. The one thing that it doesn't bring over that you'll want to do is to put in the currency, either currency or accounting, whichever one you prefer. That's up to you. Again, I want to clean this up a little bit. So I'm going to select H19 and I'm going to use that if error one more time to clean this up a little bit. And we'll type that in, put in a comma, open my parentheses, close my parentheses, and enter. And then again, to impact every one of these cells, I need to just fill that down. Okay, so now if we come over here and we select another item, maybe we have, let's see, which one haven't we used? 4 gigabyte flash drive. Automatically, it pops in my item code and the unit price. So as we go down, now it's automatically inserting that information for us saving us a lot of time and energy once we've built the spreadsheet, because we have all of that information built in. If someone orders more items, you can simply insert and fill down. So I can go ahead and click on row 31 and just insert some more rows. And then we want all of these formulas to be impacted by the rows that I just inserted. And I can do my fill down. I can either do that one at a time, or I can select all three of them and just use my fill handle, and it will fill those down. So now when I come over to A30, A31, you can see that there are now formulas in there. Oops, did I not grab that one? There we go. So it automatically filled those down for us. So we don't have a lot of products in our little store, but if you had more products, I guess we don't have any. Oh, we do have the 32-inch monitor. Scroll down a little bit, grab the 40-inch monitor. So it automatically puts all of that information in for us. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions that you may have. Let me go ahead. I've got open the Q&A, and I also have open the chat. So if you want to ask any questions or have me review anything with the lookup, the Vlookup, or the Hlookup, just let me know. We do have a little bit of time left if you want me to review some of those options. Nobody? No questions? Well, I don't see anything right now, but if you think of something, oops. Here is my email address. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and a safe weekend.